Welcome everybody to today's Camberley Chess Club Tuesday meeting. Welcome to our online members, but a special welcome to everyone else who's not perhaps been on Camberley Chess Club meetings before. This is a special meeting that we've opened up to all. And I'm aware we've got people from Sweden, Germany, Austria, US, Japan, India. It's the 92nd meeting we've had on a Tuesday, which we started in March 2020. So we're very proud of that. Today, we have a special guest, Grandmaster Daniel King. Daniel is a very popular chess player, presenter, analyst. Without further ado, Daniel, I'd like to introduce you and say thank you for joining us, and I will pass things over to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Nice to see everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Hope the levels are okay. Testing, 1, 2, and all that stuff. As some of you might have seen, sorry, I've just been joined by the cat. That's kind of interesting. Oh, well, we'll see if the cat makes an appearance. That's fun. Oh no, she's wandered off. That's good. As some of you might have seen, the title for this talk, I think I called it "The Worst Move I've Ever Made." And well, obviously, it begs the question, why did I want to take this theme? Well, it just kind of occurred to me that when, months ago when I was asked to do this, everyone comes on and kind of, here's my best game. And I just thought this would be a little bit of an antidote to that. And I gave myself the title of the, this is the theme of the talk, without actually thinking what I was going to choose. So the title came first. And then I've had this very, very painful period of selection where I've had to go through some of my bitterest moments in my chess career. So this is a kind of therapy for me. And I mean, it's said that the things that stick in our memory, if I can be serious for a moment, the things that stick in our memory are moments that are really emotional, where our emotions are heightened. And that, of course, we all know that, when we play a game of chess, our emotions are so much to the fore. Of course, chess is a rational game, but emotions play a massive part in chess. So, there's that paradox, actually. And of course, when we lose, then they are very emotional moments. And I've picked a couple of games where the memories are still really vivid for me. Of course, when we win a nice game, then our emotions are also really heightened as well. And so, of course, the corollary to this is that I'm also going to show you a couple of moments where I've won some nice games. But also there's another reason why I wanted to show some losses, is that, just because I have a grandmaster title doesn't mean, you win lots of games. It's absolutely normal in one's career to lose games. So yeah, for those reasons, that's why I'm looking at these, and I hope they're instructive as well. And I'll try to explain my thought processes, and in going through these games, just in preparation, it brought back why I played these moves, even though these games are from decades ago. So, okay, we should look at some chess after that very tedious introduction. So let me just arrange the windows so I can actually see what I want to show. So I can share screen, I guess. Okay, so let's try that. And hopefully that's visible.
Yes, that's great.
Okay, very good. So this is a game I had white against Richard Britton. It was played You can probably see up there in the Aronson Masters. I mean, this is a very large open tournament in 1979. So this really was a very long time ago. And yet the memories, at least of the end of this game, are really vivid. I'm not going to show you the whole game, or at least I'll flick through it very, very quickly just to get to the critical moments. So it was played in 1979. I'm guessing I was probably about 15 when this was played. And Richard, well, as you can see from the ELO rating, he was rated a bit more than me, but it was a fairly even contest in that respect. I'm sure many of you will know Richard. Very nice guy. That's my only consolation in losing this game, that I like Richard a lot, actually. No, really nice guy. So listen, I'm going to flick through these first few moves very, very quickly. I'm on the white side of a Najdorf. Many of you know that the Najdorf is actually one of my favorite openings to play as black, but I've also played on the white side of it a lot. So this is a very orthodox Bishop E2 Najdorf, and this is actually one of the main lines. What interests me is that, at the age of 15, I was wheeling out all this theory. I must have done my preparation very well. I wasn't always so booked up, but in this game, I think Richard always played the Najdorf, actually, so I must have prepared specially. In spite of that, I didn't get a very good position out of the opening, and this is, of course, an absolutely typical Najdorf position where we have this pawn structure with the pawns on e5 and d6 and pawn on e4. Pawn on f5, well, it doesn't do much at all. The really relevant pawn here is that pawn on e4, which actually can turn out to be very weak. And I'm sort of fighting for control over d5. But in these kind of positions, black usually has sufficient counterplay. But let me zip through this very, very quickly. I remember being really surprised when rook a4 appeared on the board. It's funny how, this sticks in my mind even decades later. That really surprised me, which shows that I might have, played a main line, but actually I had no clue as to strategy. And rook a4 is a very standard move in these kind of positions. So the rook takes up a superb position looking at this weak pawn on e4. I mean, really, white has no attack to speak of. There's very little prospect of controlling the d5 square, and black is basically taking the initiative on the queen side and through the queen side into the middle of the board. And it's the kind of position that years later I would play very happily as black. So the problem is that, if this is taken, then of course that opens up the b file and white is in trouble. So already black has the initiative, and I'm a bit worse, basically. But let me just sit through these moves quickly. Yeah, rook b1's okay. It's still not too bad. He should break with d5. This is a good move. I mean, this is the classic Najdorf break. This is the move that I get very excited about when I'm playing the Najdorf, because it's all about your center pawns. It's all about rolling through the middle, and this already looks very promising for black to me. I'm not quite sure why Richard didn't do that, but anyway, black still has control over f6. That's important, but f6 doesn't happen. Of course, white doesn't need to take. One could drop back with knight d2. That's probably the pragmatic choice, but I think black has a nice space advantage there, actually. And white isn't doing anything on the king side. Anyway, like I said, I don't want to go into that too much detail. Queen c6 that's a hesitant move, I think. Now, okay, I start to get a bit of control, actually, when things turn. By the way, I'll ask for questions in a moment, but I'm just going to zip through very quickly. now I start to like white's position. Actually, this knight has actually found a decent square, and okay, so I took here and played queen d5, which I mean, black is still absolutely fine here. Well, let me ask my first question here. So if you were playing black, tell you what, I'll flip the board round. If you were playing black, what would you play with black? So that this is open to everyone. So if you want to put your hand up with the in typical Zoom style and give a shout out, then please do. So black to play, what would you do here? It's all gone very quiet. This is usually, you see, I'm used to giving talks in chess clubs or wherever, and usually I can see people in the back row kind of looking very sheepish, and I always go to the back row and say, okay, you can't hide, and I pick on someone. How mean is that? But unfortunately, I can't really do that here. This is the great disadvantage of Zoom. So I don't know, someone.
Queen f2.
Queen f2. There's a nice active move.
Yes, Queen f2.
Yeah, looks good.
Queen f2. Okay, now I'm going to flip it back and look at it from white's viewpoint. I think white has a very strong move after that, and actually it's roughly what I played in the game.
Rook e2.
Well, rook e2 would probably allow rook a1. No, it wouldn't actually. But anyway, there's a better move than rook e2.
Can you take the pawn on b5?
Yeah, queen takes b5.
Oh, we have, yeah, the materialists in the house tonight, which is great. I think there's something stronger than that.
Bishop h5?
Bishop h5, excellent. That's an embarrassing move, isn't it? I think that's quite strong.
There's a threat.
It has a threat. Funny thing is, Richard missed bishop h5 as well. Incredibly, he played pawn to b4, which is, of course, a classic strategic move in the Sicilian. I mean, one could wax lyrical about, you know, playing a minority attack, but unfortunately, he overlooked bishop h5, which is almost resignable on the spot. I mean, this is an absolutely crushing move. You can see the result of the game, 1-0. I failed to win this position, but let's see what happened. So he ran with the king. Of course, by this stage, I was starting to get very short of time. I'm afraid this is also going to be a theme of this evening. Time pressure and my addiction, certainly in those days, it's time pressure. So this is completely winning for white. This is a threat. I mean, white is 2 pawns up. The king is in a terrible position. It's winning for white, basically. And there are many ways to do it. So but I'm going to get to the critical position. So f6. And rook here. And yes, that is a big extra piece. And it looks like I'm sort of checkmating the king. Well, at this point, I mean, I really was down to in my final minute. And I can't remember what the time control was. I think it might have been 50 moves.
And there wouldn't have been an increment, presumably, Daniel.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean,
yeah, in those days.
This is 1979.
Yeah. We're used to increments today, so
yeah, but also no digital clocks either. Of course, this was a proper analog clock where, you know, it was a bit wonky, and you had a flag that was, and the minute hand that was probably bent one way, so you couldn't determine accurately whether it was going to fall or not. So basically, at this moment, I was just checking randomly. I mean, I was basically too wound up to calculate, and I was just playing the first moves that came into my head and hoping that he would fall into a checkmate, because I simply could not calculate more than one move ahead. It's incredibly dangerous, and these checks are not really very good. But anyway, the checks, the sort of sensible checks, had run out by this stage, and I realized, oh heck, he's actually threatening mate in 1. And I also realized if I put my rook back, then that might be disastrous. And of course, taking here would allow queen takes rook as well. So at that point, I thought, okay, well, I'm a piece up. What's the problem? Of course, this should be sufficient. Actually, this is an interesting moment. His next move completely shocked me. I mean, I'm a piece up. I just thought this was completely resignable. And his next move shocked me. But before I show you the next move, I just want to have a look at this, because actually this is not as stupid as it looks. Okay, so here's my next question for you. I mean, this is kind of incidental to actually what occurred, but I'm just curious to see what you'd play with white here. White is winning this position, but how is white winning? It's actually very interesting. When I haven't looked at this since 1979. And I found it a very interesting position. White to play. How does white win from this position?
Rook c6.
Yeah, but I like rook c6.
Rook c6. Okay, let's take a little look at rook c6. Well, I suppose if I take there, then that allows a horrible check. If I come here, that exchanges rooks. So I'm certainly not going to go for those. So I will play king b7. Was that someone doing what I was doing under time pressure, looking one move ahead? I don't know who suggested
Well, I was
that.
wondering, Daniel, why queen d6 didn't work before.
Oh, listen, there were so many wins. It's too painful for me to look at. There are many wins.
When you said you'd run out of checks, queen d6 looked like a good check.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it's a very, very good check. But I want to move on to the really painful stuff later, if you don't mind. I'm not sure rook c6 achieves that much, frankly.
No.
No.
We've run out again now.
Rook e3.
Rook e3. Who suggested that?
Julian.
Julian. Well done. Hi, Julian. Yeah, well done. Rook e3 is, I think, the only move to win. There we go. Look of surprise on a few faces there. Because if check, let's see what happens. Basically, the king is going to run to e1. And the rook has made room for the king. It's actually this is very handy. I mean, this is a kind of common scenario or relatively common with the rooks on the 7th. It's not quite over. This is really nice, actually. I mean, black can still try. So what if black moves the rook back? So how does white continue? This is correct, by the way.
F3.
Rook
F3. Excellent. Rook F3. Only move to win. Okay. So I'll give a check. I mean, that basically it just means that after rook check, the rook can interpose. So I'll give another check, and the king moves here, and the rook is covered. Okay. So I'll move the rook back. Now what? I'm threatening mate again.
King g1.
Well, king to g1, black can repeat the position.
Yes.
Rook g3.
Excuse me?
Rook g3.
Rook g3. Very well done. Only move to win. It just means that after the check, the king just comes here. And actually, that's the end of that. White is a piece up and should win. But isn't that beautiful? I mean, this is incidental. But in this position, just coming back, rook e3, only move to win. Rook f3, only move. Rook g3, only move. I mean, this is you know, we've composed a study. You know, this is great. I absolutely love it. But that's incidental. And of course, he didn't take. But instead, he shocked me, and I think this is the point. That you know, if you're
was that a sideline that you looked at the time immediately after the game, or was that something that you sort of discovered in preparing for this talk?
This is something I've discovered in preparation for this talk.
Fantastic.
I mean, after the game, I can't remember what I did. You know, ripped up my t-shirt, probably did that as well. Ripped up my score sheet. That was interesting. Ripped up my t-shirt. That's very, yeah, very teenagery. Yeah, can't remember. Just ran out of the tournament hall. But no, I mean, I haven't looked at this game since 1979, basically. I did just, you know, when I was preparing for the talk. But here's the point. He played Queen E3. And this move, I had no time. This really shocked me. And it's these moments when, you know, emotion takes over. Keeping your cool in the game is so difficult when your opponent plays something that you simply haven't anticipated. And obviously, particularly when you're short of time. And I think this move, very clever move by Richard, really unhinged me. So rook takes queen obviously allows rook takes rook, and rook takes rook allows queen takes rook mate. So suddenly he's got a threat to take here, and I'm thinking, oh my God. I mean, really, you know, my flag was absolutely vertical. It could have fallen at any moment. So, okay, what should I come up with now?
Queen G3?
Queen G3.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of good moves here. Queen G3, is that a good move? What's
Then Queen takes C1.
I would have thought Queen takes Rook. Is that a good move? It's
Yes,
probably
it is.
a good move, isn't it? There you go. Do you know what? I'm not feeling so bad about my loss now.
Rook
Can you
B1.
go CD1?
But any
CD1.
time, Daniel.
I don't know who's saying this, but people are
That's
I'm just hearing random
CD1.
voices.
Rook D1.
It was C Rook.
What did I play? Yeah, I played Rook CD1.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not a bad move, is it? That's okay. So now there's actually a threat. And he played Rook E2.
Oh.
And there are so many good moves here. It's embarrassing. One of you mentioned a queen check earlier, but here I think Rook D6 or Rook takes and Rook D6 is probably going to win. This should lead to checkmate pretty quickly, I think. I imagine. Or if one wants to be very safe, taking on E2 first. Yeah, I think I gave this. So here takes now Rook D6. But this is a bit scary when you've basically I'd given up trying to checkmate him, and I went into full-on defensive mode. But yeah, basically I can chase him around the houses, and you know I'll get there. You know, I mean, this is not difficult. But I think this is the point, that I'd given up attempting to checkmate. You know, I'd fallen back with Queen G7, and my thought after Rook E2 was, okay, if I just hold out here, if I just, you know, play like this and I've got a fortress, then nothing can happen to me. I'll reach the time control, which I think is at move 50, and I'll just win the game. So that was my mindset, basically. And I thought after Rook G1 that he didn't have a move, that basically it was game over. I mean, it looks like game over to me. But again, Richard found a very, very clever move that made life very tricky.
Here.
Yeah. Yes, hang on a second. sorry, if you shout out, it's really confusing. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna I'll give you the moment to shout out, but I'm in monologue mode first, if you don't mind. He played Queen F3. This is an excellent move. I mean, obviously, pawn takes queen allows rook takes pawn mate. But the point is that it also threatens rook takes pawn, and suddenly that rook is on. So again, it's getting a little bit tricky again. And I repeat, I was kind of in full defensive mode by this point. And of course, you know, once again, rook d6 is going to be a winning move. Well, rook d6 is going to be winning. But I'd given up, you know, the random checks. I was just thinking about defense. I mean, it's hard. I was going to sort of offer this to, you know, can anyone think of the worst move on the board? Because this is the moment when I play the worst move in one of the worst moves in my career. This is so bad. So anyone like to suggest a really, apart from pawn takes queen, which I didn't play, can anyone suggest another very poor move? Right, this is a tricky one. I know this is not a normal chess question. So now I'm throwing it open. Basically, I was very concerned about rook takes pawn. I've got a hand up from Soam Kumar. Soam, what do you want to suggest? A really bad move for white, please.
H3.
H3. Yes. Great minds think alike, and fools seldom differ. H3. Because the point is this, very clever move, because after this,
Great. Thanks.
my king escapes and everything is fine. I'm a piece up.
Except.
We can play queen takes pawn.
He then played queen takes pawn, and rook h2 is mate. So
ouch.
That was that's the worst move I've ever made. I mean, the reason I find it funny is that, of course, pawn takes queen is, we can all see that, and of course that's what I'd seen. But I failed to spot the queen, you know, in this position. I don't think about the queen moving to h3, but after h3, you know, I gave him that opportunity. I actually created something. Absolutely mad. Yeah, and I remember I was so shocked that I actually, I can't remember exactly, but I kind of went, ah, or something like that. Yeah, managed to disturb the board playing next to me. Yeah, really bad. So there we go. But like I said, the only consolation, Richard is a very nice guy. So there you go. But if I'm gonna, he played some very nice moves, and I like Queen E3. I think that's an excellent move. And yeah, you've got to keep going somehow. And I think, you know, these are excellent moves. You know, so these were really tricky. But yeah, what can I say? Not great. Okay, moving on. If anything, this next one is even more painful. So this was from the British Championship in Eastbourne 1990. And this was the last round. You can see I'm playing Julian Hodgson. Old friend of mine, old rival. We're practically the same age. We've known each other since playing in London junior tournaments when we were, you know, still in short trousers. And yeah, last round, we basically thought we both had to play for a win. We thought that a win basically would win the championship. So everything was riding on this game. We also thought, I mean, I can't remember the exact scores of the other players, but a draw probably wouldn't be good enough. Okay, let me flip the board and look at it from Black's viewpoint. I'm going to zip through these first few moves very, very quickly. But yeah, we're both playing for a win. We both, you know, we played each other so many times. We sort of knew each other's repertoires backwards. And so typically, you know, we both played something kind of slightly different and managed to arrive at a position that we weren't really used to for either of us. You know, it was always a bit random with Julian. I was chatting with him the other day, and he said he'd looked up our stats, and I don't know how many times we've played against each other, but he said that we were even right from our games, you know, from junior contests. It was always very random, our games, completely unpredictable. Anyway, it's a sort of strange Englishy Sicilian system. I think it's going pretty well for Black, actually. But, you know, he's managed to generate some kind of initiative on the king side with his f-pawn, but I've got the two bishops. I mean, this is an absolute monster here, and it's looking quite comfortable. Although, you know, I've had to spin my knight round to a5. Okay, so he's...
No, it's better without.
Can everyone go on mute? It's a bit distracting. But this is typical Julian. He went for it with f5. Julian is such an interesting player. He absolutely loves the initiative. And that, I think with our games, they're always interesting because I think essentially I'm a counter-attacker. And I don't, you know, I'm very happy to sort of sit and, you know, wait to counterpunch. So, you know, very often our games had this sort of dynamic that he would absolutely go for me. And then I would hit back. And this is basically what happened here. So he offered a pawn with f5. He doesn't need to do that, actually. I mean, I think he can play solidly with e3. And actually, I think his position is reasonable. But anyway, he typically, he really went for it with f5. And I just took it. I think he was hoping that I would sort of bottle out of this challenge. His first intention, I think, was just to sack the farm with knight f5, but it's a load of old rubbish. And I think once he actually arrived at this position, he realized that it's a load of old rubbish. I would just take it. And actually, if I take the rook, then he probably has some compensation, but I think e6 is just a good move, and I take the knight instead. So having sacked with f5, he then put the knight back, and I defended that pawn. So by this point, it's looking very good for me. Okay, he gets a pawn back, but his king side is looking pretty ragged. It's a nice position for Black, basically. But Julian's a tricky customer, and typically he never sits back. You know, if he defended passively here, I think I'd have won so easily. You know, my position is solid. So Julian always understands when to try and shake the position up, when to try and go for the initiative, even at the cost of material. And this isn't particularly good, but at least it's now getting messy. And we've almost arrived at the position I wanted to look at. Sorry, I'm just going to get the moves on my other computer so that I do actually recall what's happening next. So he's got a few pawns, and I took there. And then he took there. And yes, if I just set the scene, that of course we were both approaching time pressure. I'm pretty sure the time control was 40 in 2 hours. So yeah, I've got 9 moves to get to the time control, and yes, the flags are hanging as usual. So here is a really important moment in the game, and this didn't decide, well, objectively it didn't decide the game, but actually I think it did. And the decision I made here, I think, was fundamentally incorrect. So we're not talking a blunder as in the previous game, but I think I got this badly wrong. It was a very bad pragmatic decision. So I'm going to throw it open to you. Julian's just taken the bishop here, and I've got a few options. So what would you play with black, basically?
Queen takes rook.
Queen takes rook. Yeah, that's the move I played, because remember that the background to this, we were both playing for a win, and not only that, we thought that a win would actually win the championship. And so I just played queen takes rook, because now I'm a whole rook up. And I just thought, right, now or never. If I don't go for it now, if I don't take the rook, you've got to be brave. Whatever happens after that, just take it and think later. Something will turn up. And after this, here's a move I underestimated. I'd looked at, various alternatives. Basically, black is, it seemed to me, black is a healthy rook up here. But Julian found this move. And it's not the kind of move that you consider when you're short of time. One sort of assumes that black is just going to have something here. The knight can move. Surely it's okay. But actually, it's a very clever move. And suddenly, again, it's that thing of a move being unexpected that really threw me off balance, actually. And that's why I think that queen takes rook. I mean, I'll come back to that position, but I think queen takes rook was incorrect in a practical sense. So, okay, I'll throw it open again. What should black play here? I mean, black is still actually doing quite well, but now it's quite tricky. So what would you play as black? Yes, Colin.
I'm not sure, but is F4 an idea?
F4 certainly is an idea, and that's really interesting. And that's the move that I played. And again, it was played in the spirit of this game, which was, I've got to play for a win. And I suddenly realized my king is actually a little bit exposed. And instead of playing a defensive move, I thought, right, I've got to open his king. And this is the best practical chance. And so I played F4. Now, there are other moves here. I'll just very, very briefly, knight D4 is interesting. So why didn't I play knight D4? Well, frankly, I can't remember. I mean, who knows?
Danny, rook D3.
Excuse me?
Rook D3.
Rook D3. Rook D3. Yeah, rook D3 is a possibility. In fact, I mean, this is possible. But, rook D3, I have a feeling might have been the move that I'd seen in the game and thought, okay, this could be tricky. He's defending. My king is not, it's great. I mean, he's got a pass pawn. I don't know. It's possible. Rook D3 is certainly possible. In fact, black should be winning there. But there's another move as well, which is to play rook takes rook. And then to play C3. So the idea is to attack the knight and then to take here. And actually after rook takes pawn, that actually leads to perpetual check. even when the king pops out, basically there's no escape. This even loses for white, but so basically the king has to stick around here, and it's going to be a draw. So both those moves are interesting, and that's why I rejected knight d4. I think I probably saw rook d3. I mean, I have a vague memory of rook d3 being the move that I was actually concerned about. But it's interesting looking at it now. They're probably good for black, but it's tricky. And I think rook d3 was the move I was concerned about, which, you know, when my flag was hanging, again, I thought the initiative, that's what I need to rest back in this position. And so I played f4, but it's not a very good move. So Julian took, and I took, and king here. And I'd basically reached this far and thought, great, I'm threatening mate. He doesn't have a check. This is the sophistication of my calculation, and thought, fine, I've got the initiative. His king is open. But actually, after this move, very good move, and move I hadn't anticipated, it covers g4. Those kind of backwards moves, you know, it's a classic case where they're very hard to actually anticipate, particularly when you have no time. So the rook covers the g4 square and opens up the queen here. And suddenly I've got no checks. My king is looking a little bit exposed. And that a pawn, supported by the bishop, this is worrying. So the game reeled on with queen d7. So now, you know, I've gone back into defensive mode. Sorry, Martin, you wanted to ask a question.
I was actually going to suggest queen d7 because I thought that looked like it had some chances, obviously. And
exactly. It looks like it, doesn't it? Because suddenly it feels like, you know, it's defending, but also could be a counterattack as well. Yeah, so, you know, even at the time, you know, I'd overlooked these moves, but it still felt like I'd gone down a reasonable path in that I was exposing his king. But again, you know, I think Julian found some excellent moves here. Queen b5 is an excellent move. Again, a slightly surprising move for me at the time because I'm material up, and, you know, a couple of moves ago, I was a rook up, and suddenly, I know it's only the exchange now, but my opponent's offering exchange of queens. Well, this, again, in combination with the bishop, this is very hard to judge. That looked very unattractive to me. So what did I do? Okay, I played queen g7. And he took the pawn on h5. And that basically means his king is now secure. My king is very exposed. He's threatening rook g4. Well, the good news was at least I could exchange rooks. But this is a tough position. And a rook f5 is a mistake. But it's already very difficult, actually, because I don't have any clear counterattack here. And these pawns are not to be underestimated. And in particular, in combination with my exposed king, I mean, it's all very well my queen being there, but you know, black needs a plan. Black needs an active plan. Unfortunately, rook f5, you know, it reminds me of my game against Richard. You know, it's a one-move threat. There's no calculation behind this whatsoever. He gave a check and took a pawn. And it's gone from, well, difficult to probably lost by now. It's close to being lost. I mean, this kind of attack is absolutely deadly. And bishop d5 is another excellent move, actually. It sort of cuts the rook across, cuts the rook from the king side. And yeah, let's just play it out because it's pretty sad from this moment, actually. It's funny. I'm looking at the move numbers now, and no, it must have been 40-2. So we passed the time control some time ago. So I think it was 40-2, and then 20-1, and then we adjourned. Good old adjournments. So I made it through to a queen and pawn endgame, but this is lost. I mean, I should probably keep checking, but anyway, I took on c2. Sorry, I did keep checking. Yeah, taking on c2, that loses. What does it lose to? White to play and win. Let me throw it open. I've talked too much.
Queen e5 check.
E5 check. Yeah, as usual in queen and pawn endgames, if you can centralize your queen, it's good news. And if the king steps up here, then queen f5. And if the king steps to g8, then, okay, keep going. I don't know who suggested that, but keep going.
Queen e6 check.
Yeah, queen e6. And unfortunately, that forces a queen exchange like that. Or king f8, queen f5, but, you know, no surprise. So, yeah, I check. But actually, it's quite easy for the king to escape. And yes, we reached the time control at move 60. And so the game was actually adjourned at this moment. We were in an empty playing hall, last round of the championship. And the funny thing was, after we'd sort of, you know, put our heads up and you know, one of us was sealing the move, actually, that was the first chance we'd had to see the other results. And by that stage, we realized that actually even a win wouldn't have won the championship. I think Jim Plaskett had rather unexpectedly won his game. And so he was the champion. And actually, you know, the winner of this would have been half a point behind anyway. So it was, in the end, it was irrelevant. I mean, that's kind of incidental, you know. Julian and I would probably scrapped it out in any case. But yeah, we adjourned and I just thought, okay, enough is enough. I think I'll resign this one. And it was time to share a pint. Yeah, I mean, this one, obviously, for, you know, at the start I mentioned that highly emotional situations are memorable. And this one was, for all the reasons surrounding it, because it was such a last round and there was so much riding on it, or seemed to be at any rate. It's really interesting. During the adjournment, when I was deciding whether to resign or not, I think I went to dinner with John Spielman. Let me big myself up a bit here, because actually I'd had an absolutely fantastic tournament. I'd beaten John Spielman. I'd beaten Jim Plaskett. I'd drawn with Michael Adams, he was the defending champion. I'd had a fantastic tournament. I think I was unbeaten to this moment, and I'm sure I was. In fact, Julian had kind of snuck up on the outside, and he'd had a few early disasters, but I played a really steady tournament. And basically, yeah, drawn with Mickey, who was one of the favourites, and beaten Jim and beaten John Spielman. And I think drawn with John Mestel as well. So I'd had a great tournament. So yeah, that was further reason to feel really fed up about the result of this game. But yeah, instead of actually analysing the adjourned position, because I was pretty sure I was going to resign actually, we looked at the critical moment together, and this for me was the critical moment in the game, where queen takes rook. Basically, it got out of control. You know, in games where you lose control, that's really dangerous. And after that, there were so many moves that I just failed to predict. But it's here that I could have kept control. So what should black play here? There's actually more than one good move.
King takes knight.
King takes knight is by far the simplest move. John suggested it straight away, and it's very typical of his style, because John, I mean, actually I'm the same normally. He loves to play with a secure king. And black's king here is actually very secure compared to the game at any rate. And black maintains the initiative. I think this is the point. It's actually very hard for white to get any kind of initiative here. This is simply better for black. Black has extra material. Okay, one has to watch out for the a pawn. But it's about the initiative. It's about having control. So the rook is threatened. So let's say rook here. And now what's a good move for black?
95.
95. Yeah, well done. I don't know who suggested that. 95 is an excellent move, but also actually a really simple move. This is not difficult. And that's the other thing about simply playing this, is that in practical terms, this is so simple for black to play. I'm going to put a knight on g4. With a bit of luck, I'm going to take on c2. You know, this is just winning, basically. It's just a horrible position for white to play. You know, even if I'm not mating straight away, you know, I can just pick up those pawns. You know, you can push this one, but I mean, who cares? These are not difficult moves, you know, and if white doesn't push the a pawn, you know, in this kind of position, of course, you know, the rook can just come behind here. And I mean, this is, it's very, very easy. So yeah, simply king takes knight. But, you know, I had that feeling that this was the moment where, yeah, of course, I should be a maximalist. I should take the rook, you know, no half measures here. I'm playing for a win. I'm playing for the title. But king takes knight is just a good move. 95 is actually a good move as well, and we'll simply transpose, because obviously if, well, rook here, then there's knight g4 check. And yeah, I mean, this is actually even better, even stronger. I mean, one can see that black is in total control here. These pawns are irrelevant. But when your flag's hanging, then, you know, king takes knight is just an obvious move. So there we go. I think those two. I mean, the one against Richard is sort of funny. It's, you know, junior chess, but this one had consequences. Let's put it like that. And yeah, that felt bad actually. This one was really hard to live with, I have to say. It was a funny. 1990 was a very mixed year for me. I'd had some great results. And actually, even later on in the year, I won a tournament in the Grandmaster tournament in Geneva. But you know, there were big lows as well. So yeah, there we go. I think, I mean, I've got plenty more to show you. I've got plenty more prepared. I want to be a little bit more positive and show you some games that I like very much, not just on my own, and some positions that I like as well. So I don't know, are we going to have a break where I can refill my mug of tea?
I can ask a question. Daniel, if you were playing in a tournament, like a Swiss event or something, and you have an event like that happen to you, you know, sort of right at the end of the game, you said the emotions are heightened. Yeah. What would you do to reset yourself before you play your next round? Yeah, it's really, really difficult. I saw Gary Kasparov write something recently about this, saying that the great paradox in chess is that, you know, we're supposed to learn from our mistakes, and yet at the same time have a sense of objectivity, and in order to play your next game well, you have to forget what happened in the past. Well, it seems to me there's an obvious contradiction there, isn't there? It's really difficult. Funnily enough,
I found in tournaments that actually losses, although, you know, there's the immediate disappointment and, you know, it feels terrible, but actually it's sort of, sometimes it really motivated me to play well in the next game. I remember when I was playing in the German Bundesliga, so you had games on Saturday and Sunday. If I lost on the Saturday, you know, I would always say to my teammates, God help my opponent tomorrow. I'm just going to get him. You know, I was so motivated. So it used to have that effect a little bit. But yeah, calming down. Actually, curiously, wins actually made me less stable in a way. Because, you know, if you win a nice game, you know, we all know this, one has this incredible feeling of euphoria. And actually, you know, sometimes I just couldn't sleep because I was so high after winning. You know, you win a nice game and you just, wow, you know. So listen, I haven't got a recipe, but I think I mean, one thing I learned was, you know, it's when your heart is racing, it's a kind of fight or flight response. And actually to do something physical really helps. So, you know, I would go for long walks, if possible at night, you know, before sleeping. Sometimes, you know, if possible, I'd go for a swim. You know, if you were staying in a nice hotel that had a swimming pool. So yeah, do something physical, basically. That was what I tried to do. But
it's
really difficult, really difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that, because as a professional player, it sounds like you suffer the same sort of emotional sort of ups and downs as us ordinary club players. So,
oh, totally. I mean, it's normal. You know, everyone has emotions. But no, of course, you do have sort of your routines that to try and get over it. You know, as I said, you know, doing something physical is good. You know, sadly, in my younger days, you know, I used to go out and hit a bar and get smashed, you know, not very mature. But it's one way of coping with it. You know, that's a kind of flight response where you're just trying to get off your head. And that takes you out of it.
Improve your chess.
Well, yeah, obviously very immature, because the next day it not very good if you're playing with a sore head, you know. But it's kind of understandable, because yeah, it's a form of escape. But no, one grows up and learns that that's not very sensible, but it's kind of understandable. So yeah, doing something physical was good.
yeah, thank you.
One also grows up and learns that hangovers get worse as you get older, in my experience. So
yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yeah, and I'm going to say cheers. That's my cup of tea. Yeah, totally. But you know, a lot of players, you know, maybe not so much now, but that was a kind of, maybe in the past, a more common coping mechanism. Getting a bit sloshed. Okay, I'll move on. Something a bit more positive. Actually, I was going to show you that mate in 2. I rather like that. Listen, just for a bit of fun, something completely different. I should say that I don't know what it was, but during lockdown, I got into solving mate in 2 positions, and I really like them. I mean, studies are one thing, where, you know, it's white to play and win, or white to play and draw, and it doesn't matter how many moves. But problem chess is something that was always a bit of a mystery for me. You know, white to play mate in 2 or mate in 3, and it just looked like someone had dropped the pieces on the board, and you get these unrealistic positions, and it never appealed to me. But I I've got stacks of books here, and half of them I haven't looked at or just flicked through. But there's this old one that came from a junk shop. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can just about see that. Problems and Endgames by P. Wenman, who I believe was a Scottish player in the sort of 1920s, 30s, 40s. And he used to compose problems. So this, and this is actually included in this book. I mean, he didn't compose this. This is composed by George Alvey and was published in the Surrey Weekly Press in 1919. White's Play Mating 2. And I really like Mating 2s. I don't like kind of Mating 5 or Helpmates. That, for me, that's too obscure. But I got into solving Mating 2s because you could sort of I could pick up this book on a tea break, and you could solve it in 5 minutes. And it's a bit like solving a crossword puzzle, and sometimes you just see the solution like that, and sometimes it takes a bit more. This one I really like, actually. I don't know why, it really appeals to me. I mean, sometimes they're just really beautiful ideas. So White Play Mating 2. This pawn is going in this direction, I should say. And also, okay, if I'm going to be, I mean, I think one should solve these for pure pleasure, but if I'm going to be sort of have my teacher's hat on, I think they're very good for calculation and visualizing checkmating patterns. What's funny is that, I've gone through loads of positions from this book, and I solved a stack of them. And inputted a few into my computer, like this one. But I didn't put the solution in. And when I come back, when I've returned to these positions, I've had to solve them all over again. So I'm going, what was the solution? And I had to do the same with this one today, but I really like this one, actually. Okay, I'll make myself another cup of tea. I'll see you in a moment. Just kidding.
Looks like Trevor's got a suggestion, Daniel.
Trevor, hit me with it.
Yes, Queen B6.
Queen B6, let's have a look at that one. Well, I can tell you right now, it's not the solution, but let's try and work out why. Okay, so what happens on Bishop takes knight?
Well, I think actually I've seen that for some reason I had a blind spot that the king couldn't move to E4, which it can.
Yeah, can move to E4. I don't think there's a mate there. Yeah. But that's the thing. That's why I think these are really good for calculation, because one has to analyze all the possible defenses and see mating positions as well. Julian.
Bishop F5.
Bishop F5. Let's have a little look at that one. Right. Well, so if bishop takes knight, then queen takes, aha. So that's your idea, that's actually checkmate. Well done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And king takes bishop, you got knight check somewhere.
Knight check somewhere. Where?
Where?
I suspect this might not be mated.
Oh, he's got two squares to go to. I was going to go knight
exactly.
E3. He's got king G5.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
Okay, doesn't work.
Yeah, not going to work. Sorry, not that one. Any more for any more? Listen, this is one of the easier ones, guys. Wait till we get to 5 to 10.
Is this one of these silly ones where you just do a waiting move because there is a mate following every single move that black does?
What's your
but what's the waiting move?
How about knight e2?
Well, sorry, just very quickly, Martin, you're actually along the right lines. What's interesting is that after the solution, the position is Zugzwang.
Right. Yeah.
After the move, there is actually no threat. But that's what I really like about this position. I'll explain it in a second. Sorry, knight e2 was suggested.
All right. No, Paul supplied the refutation in the chat.
Okay, I don't. Let me have a look because I'm not. First of all, I want to work out what the threat is. The threat is queen e7.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know. Random move. If I play here, is there a move against that?
Probably
I don't
not.
think there's a mate in one, is there?
No.
Wait a second. Queen b8. Queen b8. Very nice. Very nice. Not so simple.
Sorry, king e4 then?
A king e4.
Yeah. Yeah, but Paul suggested bishop h6 as well. I'm sure bishop g5.
Oh, bishop h6, of course. Bishop h6 check. Yeah. Julian, another bite at.
I'm trying to find out the square for the bishop.
But, all these tries, I mean, this is basically typical of calculation, isn't it? That, it's a process of elimination. You try stuff out and eventually you hit upon something.
Maybe bishop h5.
Well, I'm telling you, it's not the solution. Let's work out
same
why.
problem as last time. Still got to cover those two squares.
I guess that move.
Bishop
C8.
Sorry, I didn't catch any of that.
Bishop h3. H3.
Bishop h3. Okay, let's have a little. Oh well, that's a check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Almost by process of elimination, actually, we can eliminate the knight and bishop moves because of bishop h6 check and rook here. I've only just realized that.
What about king takes h8?
Yes, that looks like one of those bizarre moves that it ought to be the solution. What about rook check, though? Off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's just a check. Yeah.
King g8.
King g8. Yeah. Let's have a little look. Okay. I don't know. Let's have a think.
d4.
Yeah. What about? Okay, d4 has been suggested. Could d4 allows queen e7? But what about that one? Off the top of my head.
Knight d3.
Knight d3 allows knight d3. Very
King
good.
f6.
Okay, so what about, okay, what if I randomly move the bishop? So what if I play here? Well, it's not so random, of course. I think that's okay for black, isn't it? It's not mate. Sorry.
Rook e3, mate, isn't it?
Rook e3.
Oh, king f6.
Philip's got a suggestion.
Yeah. Hang on, let me just finish that one. Yeah, rook e3, king f6.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Philip, please.
Rook h3.
Rook h3. Okay, let's have a look at that one. In this,
King's got to go back to g7 again.
Yeah. Okay, here, what about bishop takes knight? Yeah, and it's possible to block on g5 after the check. We're getting closer, folks.
Paul has a suggestion. Paul Dargan.
Paul.
Try rook d3.
Rook d3. Well done. That's the move. This is, this looks very random. It's actually really beautiful. This position is now Zugzwang. Whatever move black plays, it's checkmate next move. And the funny thing is, white is not threatening mate in this position. So for example, queen check, king takes knight. Queen check here, king e4. Rook check, rook takes rook. Knight check, knight takes knight. But black has no good move. So watch this. So rook takes rook, knight takes rook is mate. Bishop takes knight. Okay, over to you. What's the checkmate?
Queen e7.
Queen e7.
The bishop now blocks the king.
Yeah.
Beautiful, really beautiful. Okay, and there's more. Okay, I'll move the rook.
Queen d4. Oh, no, sorry, take it back.
Nope.
Yeah, queen e7 again.
Queen b8.
Rook takes d5 is made.
Rook takes
No,
d5 is moved. Queen b8 allows here. Quiet, please. Quiet. Order. Queen e7 allows king takes, but rook d5 is the move.
Oh, right.
Sorry, folks. If people are speaking at once, it's impossible. So yeah, rook d3, excellent. So what about, well, if bishop here, I'm going to go through all the legal moves for black, then rook d5, because now the rook is blocked. Okay, over to you again. Bishop a3.
Rook e3.
Very well done. Rook e3, excellent. Because now the bishop is no longer here. It's incredible. Any move that black plays, that's what's beautiful, is actually a different checkmate. What about knight here? Over to you.
Knight g6.
Knight g6. Well done.
I'm getting the idea. Whatever piece moves, you see where that piece is no longer guarding, and then you put a piece on that square.
Exactly. So knight here.
Take.
And this can be taken. Of course, that's the same. I think we've just about covered everything. Here's a really beautiful one. Rook here blocks the bishop, and so you have rook e3. Yeah, this is good. d4. What about that one? Over to you.
Queen c5.
Yeah.
Queen c5 allows king takes knight.
Oops.
Oh, it's queen b8 made.
Queen
Takes
b8. Queen, king e4.
No, sorry.
Queen d4.
You're queen d4, haven't you?
Queen d4. That's the one. Yep, that's the one. So
yet again, you moved a piece, so you put a piece on the place where you've moved it.
Sometimes it works like that, but I think the difference is that after queen d4, there's king d6, but magically it's now cleared up. I think we've covered just about everything. Yeah, bishop e3, rook takes.
Bishop b2 we didn't have.
Bishop b2, yeah, but it's the same as bishop a3. Basically, it's rook e3 again. I think that's a stunning composition. There are lots of these mating twos, and they're just a bit meh. That I think is fantastic. Now, I mean, you've had these problemist competitions. For my money, that would have done really well. Some of them are really naff, these compositions, but I think that's fantastic, actually. Very, very clever. D3. Also, because there are so many alternatives. White has so many plausible options here. I think that's interesting. Anyway, listen, I can see that the session is rolling on. I didn't want to look at that. I've got a whole stack of stuff to look at. Okay, so this was a game I played in the Four Nations Chess League, so the national team tournament. 2004 was black against Adam Collinson. Let me just get the moves up on my other machine. And I'm going to leap forward here. So hopefully we'll get to this position.
Julian and Philip, you can put your hands down if you would like.
That happened by accident. I don't know how that happened.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm black and I'm going this way, and it's a rather blocked position. He took and played here. So white has something of a dilemma here. What would black play if the bishop, say, moved here? He actually played bishop g2, but what about bishop here? So hands up, how would you play with black?
King to f3 to d4. King to f6.
What?
Okay, that's actually f3.
F3. Sorry. All right. King to c6. Rook to knight to c6. Knight to e5.
Yeah, it's best actually just to move the king in first.
Yes.
That's the crucial move. Just to stop. Yeah, basically. Whoops, sorry, that's unintended. I would like to move the knight out, but then the king comes across irritatingly.
Yeah.
So first of all, king e3.
Of course.
And of course, the bishop can come back. King here, and well, again, bishop g2 is sort of roughly the game, but let's play here. And now,
knight c6.
Yeah, this is very different, of course, because the knight is going to spin round and actually doesn't take too much to come in here and wins very, very easily. So for that reason, my opponent played bishop g2 to keep this knight shut out. Okay, so black to play.
King e3.
King e3, yeah, of course. We
yes.
Try and get as far in as possible. Okay, so bishop here. Over to you again, black to play.
King e2 and then chop on b3 and d3.
Yeah, very well done. So king e2 played, and now it's basically the same position as before. So if the bishop moves this way, then the knight comes out. But bishop g2, and now the only way for black to make progress is to sacrifice. Of course, I did actually analyze the consequences of this before I played it. I mean, I realized it's kind of the only way for black to make progress. So it's an obvious try, but it needs calculating beforehand.
Knight takes b3.
Knight b3, yeah. King takes. Bishop here. Okay, so I mean, these moves are fairly obvious. And king c2. Okay, over to you, black to play.
b3.
King c7. King c2.
b3.
f2.
b3. Okay, here, keep going.
b2.
Yep.
Oh wow, bishop d3.
Bishop d3. Ooh.
Yeah.
And draws. So this was almost a candidate for the worst move I've ever made. But thankfully, I actually spotted this. It's funny, it got to this position. And I actually hadn't seen it before. I mean, I saw it sort of roughly around here and realized what he was up to. But I tell you what, Bishop F1 is a really sneaky trick. You know, he'd planned this, you know, to give him credit, because he could have played A5 and moved the bishop somewhere else, or just resigned, frankly, because it looked hopeless. But that is really good trick. B3 is such an obvious move, and that is not an obvious move. So what should black play? What did I play?
King F2.
King F2. Yeah, King F2 is correct. And the king goes here and bishop here. Okay, keep going.
B3.
B3, yep. King takes. Okay, over to you.
King C1.
King C1. Okay, keep going.
King B2.
Yes.
King C3. King B4.
Or
please keep going.
oh god.
We're close enough, aren't we?
I want my mummy.
You've got to take the pawn, I think.
Yeah, king takes C4.
King C4, King B4, and we're just close enough.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. There's no win.
Who said they were close enough? Close enough for jazz.
Not this.
So that's not it, in other words. No.
That's even worse.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I call kick and run chess. So you're basically analyzing one move ahead of time. That didn't happen, folks. So we've just done this. What did I play?
So it's not correct to take opposition.
You've got to keep the king in the corner. Maybe king.
And to be King E2 then.
King D. King E2.
King E2, of course, is completely winning. And he resigned here. Basic stuff.
And when you go E4, he's got no suitable square.
Yeah, absolutely. So here, just squeeze him out and I take both pawns.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Could have been another candidate for my worst move of all time, but no. Okay, that's pretty basic.
Still, it's interesting not to take opposition here.
I beg your pardon?
The obvious move is to take opposition here with king to C1, but it's not the winning move. That's interesting.
Well, I would say I did take the opposition.
Yes, but not not immediately.
Okay, let's not get hung up on definitions. That looks like the opposition to me, but okay, I don't know. It's just a winning position. You know, I think once you introduce...
I guess what he means is sometimes the opposition is often directly opposite the king, two squares. And then a lot of pawn and king endings, you have to do that. But you're right, the opposition isn't necessarily that.
Yeah, do you know what? I think sometimes language actually confuses ideas. Anyway, I think one can get too hung up on language in chess, actually. But anyway, yeah, it's just winning. I mean, it's a basic position, really. Okay, having seen that one, I want to show you this position. Ooh. Just let me get the right position. Flip it. So, Nikolaevsky against Taimanov from the Soviet Championship 1966. Yep, I like to give you all the hot theory. Bishop e4, that's a good move. And d4. Right. Oh, let me flip it. Black to play, what would you do? You thought this was going to be an evening of light entertainment where I showed you a few sparkling little obvious combinations, but no, I'm going to make you work, guys. But this is beautiful. And there is a connection between this position and the last position. And that is the biggest, fattest clue you're going to get.
I can imagine how this ends, Daddy.
Okay, good. If you can imagine how it ends. You see, I've given you a great big clue, but I want details now. It's interesting. I remember. I mean, you know, we all know the name Mark Taimanov. You know, a legendary Soviet player, but not someone that, I mean, of course one knows the name and, you know, his openings and that kind of thing, but I never really sort of thought about his style. And I remember Bronstein, in his book on Zurich 1953, the legendary tournament and the book on it, Candidates Tournament 1953, he talked about how Taimanov was somehow a very casual player, and that, you know, he would sort of play quickly and then find himself in a difficult position, and then by some miracle find an extraordinary win or a defense. And this is one of these occasions where this is truly miraculous. Now, I don't know whether he found this it's possible he found this at adjournment. I don't know.
Can we go King G5 here?
King G5?
Yep.
Okay, let's try King G5.
Takes.
And what happens if D6? So the king's got to look after the pawn.
Yeah.
And then white's king comes up. You can see it's one of these classic situations where the bishop dominates the knight. So the king comes across. That's the end of the story, I'm afraid. Peace up, nothing to do. That's the threat.
Yeah, then knight G6, yeah?
Yeah, you saw knight G6.
Of course.
So knight G6 is played. Okay, now it starts to get interesting. I mean, if white exchanges here and, you know, allows the knight back into the game, then black has no difficulties. So taking is the obvious move for white. Taking the knight, I mean, here, king here. Okay, now what? So this starts to get a little bit tricky.
King G5 or F5? Okay. Is there a difference?
Let's find out.
King G5 now. F5.
Mm-hmm.
King G6.
Mm-hmm. Okay, time to do this.
King F6.
Mm-hmm.
King E6.
Yeah.
Takes. King C6.
Aha.
No, that's
King C6
B6.
and King A5.
King A5. Bravo.
Mhm.
Bravo, Krishna Prasad.
Nice one.
Fantastic. That's what he'd seen. Stalemate. Only defense. Bravo.
Did you see that from the beginning, Krishna Vasa? Did you see that?
Yeah, in the last position, I was wondering if there was a pawn on A3.
Right.
It would have draw. So
Very good.
So if A5, then just king here and wins. Well, you can see the connection between this and the last position. But also, you know, you have to spot this. I mean, this is a sensational defense. And Taimanov had seen it. Well, he'd obviously seen it here. I think he'd actually seen it in this position. Because here, you know, if you want to try to hold the position, you know, you can try and move like knight e5, for example. And it's possible, you know, you're going to see d4 and think, okay, this loses on the spot because of this and the fact that the knight is trapped. So basically, Taimanov had seen this when he played knight takes pawn. He had seen that he could actually hold the draw with king a5.
Wow.
This is sensational. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so this introduces, well, these last two examples. One of my favorite themes, which is stalemate. I've got a whole collection of stalemate positions which I could bore you with. I can see time has absolutely raced on. I wanted to show you another sparkling win of mine before it's too late. So
go on then.
I've got go on then. Oh, go on then. How funny. There you go. Let me see. Which one am I going to pick? Okay, one against David is quite nice. Okay, this is short and sweet. I'll zip through it very quickly. So it's a Spanish. This was played when he was just a kid, but for me, that, you know, basically all the pressure is on me here. So yeah, it definitely counts. I like this move. It's a move I've played on quite a few occasions in the Spanish, actually. I love playing the Spanish with white. For me, it's this wonderful mix of sort of really rich strategy and, you know, you can sort of take the initiative. Sometimes you can go for a kingside attack, sometimes play on the queen side. I don't know, it just suits my style. I don't know what it is. Always loved playing it with white. And c4, well, we saw this kind of thing in the World Championship match actually in November. I mean, it says it's very similar to one of those games. I mean, not that it was played for the first time here or in the World Championship, or, you know, this is a common strategy actually. And if black takes, then yeah, well, we had a game in the World Championship where Carlsen, I think, played a5 in a similar, not exactly the same position, but a similar kind of position. But, you know, white can play b4 and maybe follow up with queen b3. And, you know, there could be pressure on the c file. So David played b4, but there's a problem with that the pawn gets a little bit cut off. And actually, that's now a target. And this starts to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that pawn is in trouble, basically. I could dwell on these moves, but I'll zip through fairly quickly. And now, okay, I switched strategy completely. So basically, I'm just going for a kingside attack. And I mean, I'd calculated this all out before I went for it, because knight h4 is so crude. It either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, then I'm just losing in various ways. But it just so happened, I mean, I'd worked it out that it was winning, basically. And yeah, here knight g6 is not the move, but the move is actually knight f5. That's the one I had to see. And now rook e3. And there are various tries that black has, but none of them are really sufficient. I mean, I'm either playing rook g3 or rook h3, and there isn't really a good defense. Okay. White's play. I'll leave it to you.
Rook g3.
Rook g3, that's a good start. So if the king goes in the corner, queen g7, so here.
Rook g7.
Rook g7, excellent.
Right.
E takes f.
I mean, of course, one can win
queen takes f6.
It is queen takes f6, of course. Yeah, mate in 2, just to tie up all the themes beautifully.
Oh,
Nice.
Lovely.
That's a memory that is quite vivid. Yeah, so there we go.
Can you go back a couple of moves just to see that again?
Sure.
So I was thinking of e takes f5. Does that work in any way?
In which position?
Sorry, when the king's driven to e6, e takes f5.
I'm sure it's probably a good move, but
no, that doesn't work, does it? No, it doesn't work.
Mate, I mean, knight c7 is probably a good move, but mate f2 trumps it.
Yeah. Brilliant, fantastic. Did anyone spot that coming? I didn't.
Nope.
Amazing. Well, we've got David on in a month or so, so we'll remind him of this.
Oh no, please don't. I don't. Oh, no.
What's it worth?
Yes. Only kidding.
Yeah. No, seriously, he doesn't need that.
No, it's brilliant. Very good. It's a good instructional game, actually.
Yeah.
Well, you switched to the king side very quickly, and the rook was obviously always coming up. But I wonder what black could have done to stop that a bit earlier.
But basically, after queen h6, he's lost. He's lost. But I think the thing is, I had to see it all through before I played queen h6, because otherwise, this is just a fool's errand. Because if the attack doesn't work, I'm just lost. So it's actually quite scary playing queen h6. This was not a kind of flip the coin moment. I'd calculated everything out. My calculation was always quite good. My concentration was quite good. I had other problems. I mean, I think there's a problem with being a calculator when you play chess. That there's this tendency to want to work everything out to a finish, or work things out to a position where you think I have the advantage, or this suits me, or I'm comfortable in this position. The problem is that in some positions aren't actually suited to calculation. Sometimes they're simply too complicated, and one has to simply play a move that looks good. And that's how I often ended up in time pressure, because I was trying to calculate too much. Basically, I have a perfectionist streak. And that's a problem in chess, if you calculate too much. I mean, I cured that to some extent in my career. But it is a tendency, that I recognize in myself, basically. And particularly when you're off form, you sort of don't correct these sort of habits. You fall prey to them. I can see that time is marching on, and I've shown you about 1/10 of what I prepared.
You have to come back for another visit, Daniel.
I'd be very happy to do that, of course. But I mean, before we wrap up, if you've got any questions, or I could bore you with some more mating twos, of course. You know.
No, too hard.
This one's much easier. This one I like. This one again. I don't like positions with too many pieces. This one is quite simple. Pawns going this way. This is by Rudolf Lermet or Lermet. He was actually German, but he was around at the end of the 19th century. This one I like. Very simple, actually. But while you're thinking about that, if anyone's got any questions, I'd be very happy to ask about anything you like about openings, about improvement, about, well, cups of tea, whatever.
What's your ambition in chess now, Daniel?
That's a very good question. I'm trying to work it out myself. I mean, I don't play at the moment, basically because life took over. I've got, I'm married with kids, and life is complicated, and what I realized when I played my last serious game in about 2011, about just over 10 years ago, and it was just too much of a strain. There was too much going on. I was, in my work, just generally, I do lots of different things, whether it's, journalism and broadcasting and coaching, I don't know what. And I realized that it was impossible to keep everything in the air. And when you devote less time to playing, I mean, really, in my 20s and early 30s, I was a professional chess player, and I could devote myself single-mindedly to playing. But when I tried to juggle it with everything else, with work and family commitments and broadcasting and TV and God knows what, although, the spirit was willing, but the flesh was weak, basically. It's just, you really have to devote yourself 100% to the game. And I didn't, and my chess suffered. And in the end, I didn't enjoy that feeling that I was compromising. So yeah, as my chess playing ambitions at the moment, I don't have any because life is still very complicated and interesting and varied, which I like. Yeah, Michael, you wanted to ask a question, or Michael?
Oh, I wanted to suggest rook d3 check.
Oh, rook d3 check.
No.
That gets taken. Maybe you.
No, it's the other way around. It's first
Yeah,
queen g8, queen g8.
Queen d5.
Queen
No,
g8.
Queen b8.
G8.
No.
Who suggested? Order. Who suggested queen g8?
b8.
Prof. Well done. Queen g8 is the solution. Excellent. Beautiful move. If king here, then rook d3 is mate. And if here, let's just go through all the alternatives. Here, in fact, black is very restricted. And final one, it's a kind of Zugzwang position, actually. Then queen a2. Congratulations. Well worked out. Excellent. And queen g8 is a unique solution. It's the only one to.
Steve had a question, I think.
Yes,
sorry,
please.
but can I just ask if the c-pawn takes the rook on d3 and after queen d5, what's happening?
Well, it's mating 2.
Ah, sorry. Yes.
That's supposed to be mate.
Yes,
and it ain't.
Yes, sorry.
Queen g8 is the only way to mating 2. Well done.
I wanted to ask Daniel how a typical day looks for you, particularly during the World Championship and a big tournament like it's been on this week. How many hours do you sit in front of your computer a day? Preparing the videos or looking at the games, then preparing the videos, and then recording the videos. It looks like a massive job to me. I mean, I watch loads of these things, and I think, you must be there for ages every day.
Yeah. Okay. So the short answer to your question: how much time do I spend in front of the computer? Too long. And my days are ridiculously long. I'm trying to do something about that, but I find it difficult. I mean, in my work life, well, my work life is very varied, and I like that variety. But there is a problem with that. That, yeah, you spread yourself a bit too thinly sometimes. With the videos that I do of, sort of roundups, well, I just about managed to fit one in this afternoon before having this talk.
Yeah, I saw you posted about 20 to 8. I thought I was cutting it fine.
Yeah, it was a bit. No, I posted earlier than that, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but yeah, that's sort of how my work life is. I just dovetail stuff between this and family and all my other activities. I mean, I've done some crazy stuff. I mean, I don't do this now, but about, let me see, I don't know, a few years ago, 6-7 years, I was sort of semi-professional musician. I know this is something completely off tangent. And I was trying to combine all my chess activities with, I was playing in about 3 different bands professionally. And so I'd be doing commentary, and I'd be throwing my gear into the back of the car and driving off to play a gig, some function band, someone's birthday party, or, playing in I was doing a residency in a very smart hotel in Kensington, playing in a jazz trio. Great fun, but boy, was I exhausted.
What instrument do you play?
For that jazz trio, I was playing the double bass.
Oh wow!
But I sort of played, guitars, electric bass and guitar, and double bass is the most fun. But double bass is, again, that's the kind of thing where you really need to be up to speed on it. You can't just sort of dip in and out. And for a time, for about 4 or 5 years, I was playing really regularly with that, and in a couple of different bands, and that was fantastic fun. But mad, because I'd be getting back from gigs in the middle of the night and then having my, trying to do my proper work. Yeah, it was crazy. So I mean, lockdown basically killed my music career because there was nothing going on, and I do very little at the moment, which is kind of sad. But I hope to sort of pick it up when things return to some kind of normality. So yeah, that was a very long and rambly answer. For those roundup videos, it could be a couple of hours, because I prepare well, and I do them in one take, and I do them in one take because I prepare well. So yeah, about 2 hours for each vid. Probably too long, but I'm kind of interested in the games, and I want to do a good job. Again, that's my stupid streak in me, that I want to do a good job.
Well, I for one highly appreciate them, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people on the call do also.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah. I think there was another question. Was there a question earlier from Sanja on the chat, or was that quite a long way earlier? No. What? Any other questions?
Yeah, that was my question about the time trouble issues.
So what specifically? How do you get over it?
That's right. Yeah.
I think it's this being aware of the fact that I mean, for me, I can only speak personally, being aware of the fact that this kind of perfectionist streak, it's not just that, it's actually often it's a symptom of a lack of confidence, that one has to kind of check everything before making a move. And I think one just has to try and be aware of that. And, you know, very often in positions, you just have to guess what is the best move, or this is a move that looks good. You know, this is what the best players do. Best players do not play perfect games. You look at Carlsen, he does not play perfect games, and often, you know, he wins a game, but when you look at it afterwards and people are going, you didn't play the best engine move. It's ridiculous. Carlsen is brilliant at playing good practical moves. You know, I can't remember which Soviet trainer said that he'd rather win an endgame with an extra pawn than try to find a mate in 20. It's the same kind of thing. You know, he plays a good practical move. And I think that's what one has to try and learn, to be pragmatic, actually.
Paul Bloom, I think you have a question.
Not really a question, but talking about these beautiful mates in two,
yeah.
I wonder if Daniel's seen the one that Jonathan Levitt gave us 2 weeks ago.
No, I haven't.
That was fantastic. What was the it was again the Zuzwang, wasn't it? I remember the answer. You remember the answer, Martin?
I can't remember the answer, but it was ridiculous.
It was because
moving the queen somewhere silly. Was that the one moving the queen?
No, it was, the answer was bishop b3.
Okay, it's different one, yeah.
Yeah, but it's well worth a look, Daniel, if you can have a look at that one.
Yeah,
well, they
John,
were very similar to the ones you've shown, where any move that black made was Zuzwang, and there were lots of pieces on the board.
Right. Yeah, I mean, John, I have to say, I like his book. I've got it on the shelf up there. His book on problems and studies, I think, is excellent. You know, his sort of dissection of the aesthetics of chess puzzles and problems and chess games themselves. I think he did it with David Freegood. It's an excellent book.
David,
highly recommend.
David joined the call, and they sort of co-presented it.
Right.
It was a very good session.
2
weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
They know their stuff really well.
Yeah. But that was the best mate in two I've ever seen. That one.
Oh.
Just because there were so many pieces on the board.
Right.
And
it's funny.
Just a waiting move.
Those kind of mating twos with so many pieces, I find these ones, I mean, perhaps these are simpler, but I sort of find the purity of these kind of positions actually more attractive. Actually, maybe I'll leave you with one. There's one that I saw this the other day, actually. It was, again, I saw it in this book. I haven't got it there. I'll find it very quickly. I'll leave you with one. It's really nice. Just bear with me 1 second. I will find this.
Any last question for Daniel?
Yeah, while I'm digging this up. Yeah, please, if you have any question. Just. Oh, this is bothering me now.
Don't worry.
No, I'm going to find this.
Sorry, Danny, did you do any specific training to play moves more on judgment than training, or did you just plunge in and start doing it?
I don't think I was very conscious about it, because I wasn't the only one that had this problem, actually. And I, at that time, the time when I was playing lots of tournaments with William Watson, who is much worse than me. He is the worst time pressure addict. Will was notorious for his time scrambles. And we talked about it together, and basically, and I had a couple of pupils at that time who had a similar problem, and I had the same problem. And I drew up this sort of bullet points, and it was almost like a manifesto, the golden rule: no one plays perfectly, and you're kidding yourself if you think you can. I've got it written out somewhere, even somewhere in that filing cabinet back there. And so it was sort of more of a conscious effort to remind oneself that no one plays well in time pressure. You know, there's this sort of almost a sort of romanticization. Is that a word? Of time pressure and how, you know, one can be daring and, you know, go to the wire. It's ridiculous. Time pressure, just everyone makes mistakes in time pressure. And so it was a very conscious decision to tackle it. I wouldn't say that I trained specifically for it. And when one is aware of it, there we go. That's the one I was looking for.
Mark Hannon has a quick question, I think. Mark, are you still there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear?
Yeah.
Well, it's not directly on chess. I just wondered what Daniel thinks he might have been if he hadn't been a chess professional, or if chess was made illegal or something. What would he be?
Oh golly,
musician by the sound of it.
Yeah, maybe a musician. I don't know. Although I have a sort of streak in me, which is, I don't know. Maybe a musician. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's possible. I really like language, so possibly studying something to do with languages, and you know, that would be. But journal. I mean, I'm a journalist anyway. You know, that's one of my hats that I wear, and I you know, enjoy being a journalist. So, but something to do with language, probably actually.
Yeah.
You know, I really love language, whether it's just English or.
Because you speak German as well, don't you, Daniel?
Yeah, I speak German, sort of by accident, and I've got smatterings of others, but German is sort of the only one that I speak properly. But you know. But I enjoy going to countries and just attempting to speak. So, you know, wherever I go, I'll learn some phrases, and it's just fun. I just, you know, you can take on a different persona when you speak another language. So I always like to try stuff out, and I don't mind making an idiot of myself, basically, which is inevitable. So yeah, I just enjoy languages, full stop. But German's the only one I can speak halfway decently.
Anyway, as well as English, of course.
Yeah, sort of. So this is the one that I again, it's from this book. But it's not by this guy Wenman. So it's by a chap called Donald Mackay, and apparently this was published in 1920. And this one, actually, it's funny. Again, you know, as I mentioned earlier, some of these puzzles are sort of, they're like crossword puzzles. You know, sometimes you see a solution instantly. It's funny. This one took me some time. And yeah. And I think the reason is it looks like white should be able to mate in two so easily, because, you know, black's king is really exposed, and white obviously has an overwhelming superiority of forces. So this one really took a long time, and I think it's rather beautiful in its own way. I might leave that with you.
C5.
Excuse me.
My initial thought was Queen C5.
King B7.
Yeah, just as a little hint. Oh, you probably saw the solution then. That's a pity. As a little hint, these kind of mate in 2 or mate in 3 problems, they very rarely start with a check or a capture. That's sort of an unspoken rule. Occasionally they do, if it's something very special, but normally they don't start with a check or a capture. That's far too crude.
But so Julian and Tony, I'm sorry, I don't know who put their hand up first. But
I'm at the top.
Okay, Julian.
I was going to get rookie 6.
Yeah, rookie 6 isn't the move. And well, one reason is
queen takes H7.
Oh, queen G7 check.
Queen G7 is check. You might have seen.
I was going to suggest rook e3, so you answer queen g7 with rook c3.
That's the move. Yeah, you might have seen it.
Oh, I didn't actually see it. I'd worked it out, but I didn't actually see the solution when it came up. So
very good, Tony.
Well done. Well done. Rook e3 is the move. So the point is that after queen g7, rook c3 is mate.
Unbelievable.
But more than that, so for example, there are obviously other moves. So king here.
You got bishop b6.
Bishop b6, exactly. And if the bishop moves, queen d7 is mate. Rather attractive, this bishop.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one, isn't it?
I think rook e3 is really beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very rare to sort of interpose, to actually break a check by interposing it and deliver checkmate.
Exactly, yeah. So that one really appealed to me. And if queen takes rook, then yeah, this is mate. Anyway. Okay, folks, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks everyone for attending, and thank you for the invitation. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, Power Play Chess, please do. I could say more. I could show you more, but I think we better leave it there.
Hey, look, thank you very much, Daniel. It's really appreciated. Thank you for coming on. I think we've all enjoyed it. We'll do a video. We put it on our YouTube channel with a link for online guests only, so it doesn't go on public, but we might invite you to link to it as a public video if you would like. We'd be quite happy with that because that helps the publicity. So on behalf of Camberley Chess Club, online members and everyone else who's joined tonight, thank you very much for coming on.
You're welcome. Okay, it was good fun.
Thank you.
Listen, take care, everyone. All right, see you later. Bye now. I'm off. It's time for dinner, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, see you later. Bye now.
Bye.